Welcome to the Leading is Serving podcast. My name's Jason.
I'm Chris Wood.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys tuned back in.
Yes.
Episode number 4.
Number 4. Can you believe it already?
I know, this is exciting.
I am excited.
Yeah, we've got a good guest guy. Let me get my words straight. Maybe that'll help if we're going to podcast, right?
We are on a podcast.
We've got a good guest lined up for today.
I'm
excited about Kyle. Look forward to hearing from him here in a few minutes. But
yeah.
What have you been up to, man?
Well, I do have to tell. I bought a new toy not too long ago.
Oh, confession time.
Yeah, my wife is probably going to shoot me. But no, I had a customer who decided to sell his pretty yellow Corvette. And so he gave me the opportunity, and I took it. And so I've been driving around a little yellow Corvette, and it's been fun.
This isn't like a year old.
No. It's older. It's 1987. So
87. Okay.
Yeah, it's quite a few years old.
That's a good year though.
But it's only got like 91,000 miles on it. So it runs like a top. And
that's fun.
It's got power.
You kids like riding in it.
They are. I got mixed reviews on that one.
Okay.
But every time Dad like punches it and starts to spin out, I get either a glare or a punch or a Dad, stop.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when do I get to borrow it?
Oh, you can come over and get it whenever you want. I took it out last night.
Nice. Looking forward to that. I like that.
So that's, obviously that's pretty much, fun and exciting. But what have you been dealing with? Tell me what's going on in your world.
Oh man, what's not going on? I mean, goodness, as you know, I'm in the very initial stages of launching a little small business for myself and a friend of mine that's going in. We're partnering together in a little LLC that's leaning into coaching and leadership development and things like that for individuals and teams and organizations and blah blah blah. But we're kind of at that point where I'm running out of things to distract myself with. Oh, that the next big thing is I got to get that first paying gig, right?
Right.
No, I gotta develop the website. And okay, I got it developed. Oh wait, no, we need one more page on the website. Oh wait, we don't have our bank account set up fully.
Right.
We got something we need to get that set up. Oh, but what about our accounting software? We got to get that. I'm running out of things to distract myself from taking that first hard step of, all right, I got to find a client.
Time to rubber needs to meet the road, huh?
I am maybe feeling stuck, maybe feeling intimidated. Yeah, because all this stuff's been the behind the scenes, the learning, the getting on board, certified as a coach. No problem. I got that. Mm-hmm. I don't like putting myself out there. So.
But it's super exciting. It's just, I know that you got a great heart to teach and a great heart of, trying to bring better health to some of these business owners out there.
I love living at point B. But the journey from A to B, not so much. I like being at point B because then I'm dreaming about point C and D and, So I'm really excited about 6 months from now.
Right.
I'm not excited about what I need to do tomorrow.
That's interesting.
And anyway. But last week we talked about being a healthy leader.
Okay.
And we've talked about how healthy leaders multiply into others and such, and what health kind of looks like. But one of the things that I've really struggled with is that my personality, I tend to take on a lot of things. I value excellence in this. I value excellence in that, and I'm not sure who might be able to do this one. So I'm just going to quietly scoop in and take this up, and I'm going to raise the bar, and I'm going to really. Mostly creative projects along the way over the years and stuff like that. But it's been really easy for me to get overloaded, nearing burnout, and things like that. And I love learning new stuff.
Okay.
I really do. I just love learning. And, if we go into your industry of home renovations and stuff like that, I'm like, yeah, I'd really love to learn how to put in wood flooring in my home. So I rip out the carpet. Right. I'm going to do about 1,500 square feet on a tri-level home.
There you go.
I'm a quarter of the way into the first room and I'm done.
You're done.
I know what I need to know. I can see how the rest of the house is going to work. I'm good. And then I, grunt my way through the rest of it, or I call you. So,
right. I'm here for you.
Yeah, thank
Just
you.
in
I
case
appreciate
you
that. I appreciate that. So as we think about being a healthy leader, there's a principle called the 70-30 principle. And what that means is that 70% of your time, you should really be diving into the things that are just natural to you.
Okay.
The things that you really don't, I mean, it's kind of what's called unconscious competence.
Okay.
Meaning you can do it in your sleep. You can do it with your eyes closed. It's just, it's the stuff that you crave. That when you hear something on the radio, or you see a magazine, or you see a blog, you see a website, you hear something, you're like, oh, I just want to know more about that because that just is natural to me. And so if that's the stuff that brings us energy, it's life-giving to us. Even though it costs energy, even though it costs effort and time and resource, it's life-giving. And so I absolutely love playing the guitar. Okay. I'm not like some soloist that's gonna, make an album or anything. No? I'm not gonna do anything like that. But just playing just energizes me.
Really?
I mean, my fingers might be bleeding when I'm done.
Right?
I might just be totally exhausted, but I just have life because it just breathes life into me. And so that's kind of that unconscious competence of these are the things we love. It energizes, it gives us strength. It's just natural. And if that comprises around 70% of what we do throughout the week, that breathes health into us. That other 30% of what we do is going to be more of those learned strengths like learning to lay a wood floor. At one time, I love creative ventures. So I was like, well, I'll learn to build websites. I love this. And I love the creative aspect. I love it. But, at some point I'm just like, I'm done. It's a skill that I've learned. I enjoy it. But in the end, it doesn't really breathe that life into me.
There's a difference between those.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's not 100% draining, but it doesn't necessarily add. Right. And so that's part of the 30%. And so if there's, as a small business owner, if you and I have talked, where does bookkeeping fall? Is that in your 70% or your 30%?
Definitely the 30%.
Definitely. I'm with you.
Right.
I'm with you. And so, if there's some things in our lives that literally just suck the life out of us,
that would be one of them.
Yeah. We need to make sure we're not spending 70% of our week on the things that suck our life out.
Right.
I mean, we can really only afford about 30% of that. And so can we sandbox it into those moments? Or, can we offload that to another employee? Can we outsource that? Can we find somebody to help with that? That's the area that we need to delegate and outsource and really lean into other people on. And so if we can kind of keep that balance of 70-30, and it's going to fluctuate day by day, week by week. I have one day a week on Tuesdays that they're exhausting. It's a long day. And it's that way every week. But Mondays are pretty quiet. I have a lot of fun on Wednesdays. So even just Monday and Wednesday kind of balance out that Tuesday for me. And so my week is in balance, even though some of my days are not. And so we kind of have to watch that as leaders,
right?
As we're building our businesses,
especially as our expectations are, as a starting business owner, like expectations of you have to do all these things.
Yeah, because you're the only guy.
Yeah,
and so your 100% is 100% of everything.
Right. Well, whether you like it or not.
Right. And so and so you absolutely have to manage that in your life. And you might have a week that you're more at a 50-50 balance, but it's time. And that's why vacations are important.
Right.
That's the time we heal.
It's starting to get cold here in Indiana. I'm ready to go south.
Yeah. I grew up in a warm climate. This snowbird thing, I still don't quite get. I don't know.
It's okay. I don't expect you to get it. I'll see you in Florida.
Just leave your Corvette here with me you go.
You can use it. I'm gone.
So tell us about our guest today, Chris.
All right. Well, so we have Kyle, and he is an entrepreneur, and he has done a lot of great things. So I'm super excited about talking with him and all his. He'll tell you he comes from the video podcasting arena of things, and still
hope we measure up.
Right. I'm like, are we supposed to have a guy on here about podcasts? Because I don't know what we're doing right and doing wrong. But anyways, and now he is just taking on a new franchise this year. And so I'm super excited to hear about that transition and what that looks like for him and what he's learned and gleaned from all that.
That's cool.
So let's bring him on.
All right, here we go. We're going to go over to the interview with Kyle, and we'll be back afterwards. See you then.
So welcome. Thanks you for
guys.
being here.
I'm glad you guys asked me. This is awesome. I've been enjoying the podcast so far, so you guys are doing a good job. Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it. So tell us a little bit about your background, kind of what got you to this point in life.
Yeah, well, like you guys, I'm a transplant to Indiana.
Very good.
And some of the other guests you've had on, came here when I was about 10. So basically kind of grew up, down here on the south side of Indianapolis. I'm a Ball Stater twice for a master's degree as well. But I got an internship at the end of college that sent me out to Los Angeles. So I lived and worked out in Los Angeles for a couple of years in the film community. Wife got homesick, so we moved back. And I mean, you want to talk about God's provision, man. She's like, I think I want to move back. I'm like, well, I'll tell you what, you find a job, we'll move. 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
She had a job. I'm going, I guess we're moving back to Indiana. Like, dang, that was quick, because otherwise I might still be out there. But so that was in July of 2000. We've been back here ever since, and been married since '98. Got a couple kids and a couple of businesses. I'm a serial entrepreneur like you, Chris, and just trying to find my way in the world,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's all.
So outside of a couple of businesses, family, what just drives you? What kind of makes you tick in the in between?
I was thinking about this a lot last night, and I had a real moment with myself where I was like, what is it? It's the fear of failure. Honestly, that's what motivates me. I wouldn't say that I'm an overly driven person. I actually get on my own case about being lazy sometimes. Like, I should be doing something right now or something more than this,
right?
Whatever that may be. But my fear of failure, I think, is what has motivated me. A lot of people kind of go through life not really knowing what they want to do. They go to college, but they don't really know what they want to study, and then they get done and they work in that industry maybe for a couple of years, and then over 70% of college graduates work in a field that they didn't get their degree in.
Exactly.
I mean, to me that sounds like an investment problem.
Right.
I just knew what I wanted to do. I went to school. I did it. I knew I was going to go to L.A., and I did. And I knew I was going to work in the film business, and I did. And then my wife knew she was going to be a teacher, and she's still teaching today. And, I mean, on one hand, I guess we're lucky. We're fortunate that we got married. We said, hey, we're not having a kid for 5 years. 5 years later, we had our first kid. I mean, we planned it, and it worked. So everything that we've kind of set out to do as a family unit, we've kind of made it happen. And I don't think that's an accident. I think if you set goals, if you want to achieve certain things, there's no reason why you can't do it. But, the hard part is setting those goals. It's finding that passion. It's finding what you want to do and then finding a way to execute it. And that's where I think a lot of people stumble, is they don't know how to execute their vision.
So that's where the failure part comes in?
That's where my failure part comes in, because once I have decided, okay, I'm going to do X, Y, or Z, then I devise a plan and I follow through, and I can't let myself fail.
Okay.
Like this new business that I bought earlier in March of 2021, I bought a franchise, and it has been one speed bump after the next. I've taken one step forward and 2 or 3 steps back, a step forward, 2 steps. I mean, it's been challenging, and it's been difficult. It's been far more it's been the hardest thing professionally that I've ever done. And I'm just getting started. I mean, we're not even really going yet.
Yeah, you're only, 7 months into it?
Yeah, and trying to hire people right now during the the Great Resignation, as they're calling it.
Yep, I've heard that multiple times.
Has been awful, just awful. And on one hand, it sounds like I'm making an excuse, but on the other hand, you can't force people to want to work.
Right. So let's back up because I want to hit some of these points that you're talking about with this new business. But explain to me, so you were in the workplace where you were working for somebody else, but then you went out on your own at one point too. So let's back up before we get, I want to touch on those things, but let's go back to, okay, so now you're working, you have kids, you come back to Indiana, things are moving forward. You decide to go out on your own in the same industry that you expected to be part of.
Yep.
How did this transition become, and then fast forward me to, we can get to that part where
Sure.
you're at today.
Yep. So when we moved back in 2000, I started, freelancing for a couple different, like TV stations and production companies that I, through contacts I had, friends I had, and so forth. And then I got hired. I needed to find a full-time job. So then in the spring of 2001, I got hired full-time at a video production company downtown, and they're awesome. And the owner he's secretly one of my mentors. I mean, I love the guy. He's so smart, and he's just such a great dude. And I've learned a lot from him. And, even to this day, I'm their number one call when they are busy and they need some help.
Okay.
They call me first, and I go and help and travel for them and all that stuff. But I knew after working for him for about 3 years that this is great, and I'm loving it, and I love the guys I work with and whatever, but I want to do some other stuff. Okay. And so I kind of started freelancing on the side through guys that I met and so forth, and I started working some Colts games for ESPN and covering Pacer games for Fox Sports and not doing part of the broadcast of the game, but doing the pregame stuff with the on-field reporter, doing the postgame, press conferences and locker room interviews and stuff like that. And I'm like, this is fun. I love sports, and this is like big-time TV. And,
right.
In addition to my regular job, this is cool. So I kind of decided in the fall of 2003, that I'm going to start my own business on the side, just to keep my money separate from all those freelance gigs, and I'll start buying equipment and so on. So, because I knew eventually I was going to jump off.
Okay, so you kind of had an understanding.
I knew that this is great, but at some point, I want to go do some of those other things that I enjoyed more, to be frank. So that's what happened, and so then in May of 2006, I was free and clear, and that was one of the other harder decisions in my life, was leaving a job with a great boss, cool coworkers, and that was tough for me.
Yeah, because a lot of people, a lot of business owners that I know, have at some level, made the jump because of frustrations. So it's completely different to be happy with your job, happy with your boss, and like, okay, I still got to go.
Yeah, I was just tired of working on the same projects every single year at the same point in time, and blah blah blah. I just got, kind of, I don't want to say complacent or bored with it. I just got kind of like, I want to do other stuff. Yeah. I need to, scratch a creative itch and do some other things. So then went out on my own in 2006, and it was great. And I started, freelancing for IndyCar, and at the time Champ Car, which was the competing series that the IndyCar broke off from back in the day. So I was actually working for both racing series and doing a lot of stuff for ESPN and NFL Network and national news networks, and then doing some corporate video too for like Roche and Eli Lilly and some other companies as well. So it was fun, and I enjoyed it, and off we went. And then I started buying equipment, and I started buying a lot of equipment, and to the point to where we started a rental company with a partner of mine, with a friend of mine,
cool.
in 2008 officially, but we really put a customer face on it as a rental shop in 2015. So, but those were symbiotic businesses. That gave us the excuse to buy more gear, because then we would just put it in the rental company and then try to rent it. So
right, which is a good mix, right?
It was a good mix. It was great, and that was a good thing for a while.
Okay,
that's cool. You mentioned earlier about obstacles to execute a vision. That you have a vision, you have a dream, you got this great thing coming down the road, but you just don't jump off the cliff. You don't take those first steps. You don't. What do you think is critical to that? You mentioned a plan, but take us a little further down that of what advice would you give to somebody who is striking out, trying to make some of these first steps that you've made along the way? 3 different times? Is that what I'm hearing? 3 different businesses along the way.
Yeah.
Whether that's a franchise over the last 7 months or freelancing back then.
Yeah. That's a good question. I think it comes down to, do you have a passion for what you're going to do? And may not necessarily be a passion for the work itself, but do you have a passion to create a vehicle for you to do something with? So, for example, for my franchise that my wife and I bought this year, the whole purpose of purchasing the franchise is a vehicle for us to help pay for our kids' college funds and to really sock money away for retirement, because we're a little behind the 8 ball on it based on our age.
Yeah.
The whole reason why we're doing that is for those 2 reasons. It's not so we can live in a bigger house or drive nicer cars or take better vacations. It's literally to save. And we also, I've always tithed from my businesses as well. So this is just another excuse, another reason for us to give back once this business gets up and running. Okay. That's important to us. We took, not that Dave Ramsey needs any more publication, but we took the Financial Peace University class in 2006. Same year that I decided to go freelance, full time. And that was not a mistake. And we needed it because we were a mess financially. We didn't know how much of a mess we were until we took that class, and we got serious about it, and it changed our life.
That's awesome.
That's cool.
So, from all of our businesses from that point going forward, we've used some of that to give back to whatever, our church or Red Cross, whatever was going on at the time that we felt like is a good cause.
Absolutely. So I hear a value coming out in terms of we're launching this new franchise, which I hope to hear a little bit more about that here in a little bit. But we're launching this to kind of future-proof our family, whether that's college education or retirement or things like that. What are some other values or principles that you and your wife, that you guys really hold true to, and you let that be part of your shaping and the decisions you make, not just as a family, but as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, couple things. The first thing is a quote that I kind of live by, that my dad said to me when I was about 14 or 15 years old, and that is, he said the truth. I don't know how we even got on the topic, but I remember it. It was after school one day. It was sunny outside. He had lost his job recently. He was an executive at a trucking company. This was probably 1989, I guess. And he told me the following. He said, "The true measure of a man is his honesty and his integrity." He said, if you do everything in life every day with honesty and integrity to the best of your ability, everything's going to work out.
Well,
and
awesome.
I repeated that at his eulogy in 2015. And my mom never knew that. Like, she never knew that we had that conversation, or that was something that had stuck with me that whole time. And so we had a nice little conversation about that after my dad's funeral service. And I said, he said that to me one day, and it just stuck with me. And so, to answer your question, Jason, in a roundabout way, people take a lot of shortcuts sometimes. And sometimes you look at them and you're like, man, how is that working out for them? How are they so successful when we know they're taking, when we know there's shortcuts being taken, or maybe their business is a little sketchy or whatever, and you think, how are they winning? Are they? I mean, maybe material-wise they might be, but in the end,
looks like it.
In the end, they may not be winning. And so even though I've always been chasing money, I finally had a realization in 2016, stop chasing it. And then guess what? I stopped being caught up with that, and it allowed me to relax and focus and enjoy my family more, enjoy my business more, that sort of thing. So the second part, to answer your question, is diversification. We realized in a very real way that from a business standpoint, from an income standpoint, from a family financial standpoint, we needed diversification. because when COVID happened and the pandemic hit and all of my jobs canceled and went away and I had no work for a little over a month. And so therefore, when you're on 100% commission and you have no work,
That's a problem.
that can become a problem. Luckily, we were okay financially. We could weather that storm.
Right.
Even though I freaked out and started applying for jobs at Kroger and Target and everything, I eventually rescinded some of those offers that I got because I'm like, somebody else needs that more than I do. But it forced us to think, we have to think long term. We're thinking, we're living in the now, even though we're trying to prepare for the future, but I wasn't thinking, how can I idiot proof or pandemic proof, if that's a thing, our life. And so that's where I hired a business coach. We spent 6 months doing research on several different franchise opportunities to do in addition to what I've already been doing, just for diversification, because I am never going to put my family in that position again to where dad's sitting on the couch for a month with no work and there's nothing he could do about it.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about the execution. It's interesting how with your whole life story, how, you come up with a plan and you execute it. And Dave Ramsey was part of the financial growth and execution of moving forward through being able to go out on your own. And then you go through this process. We go through a pandemic. Tell me what the plan and execution looked like before we started having a conversation about whether we wanted to do a franchise, and walk me through a little bit of that just so I can catch up on what that looks like. For a guy that plans a lot, you do an excellent job of planning and executing, and I'm curious to know some of that if you don't mind.
So in 2015, I started noticing what I refer to as a disturbing trend in the video and TV production business. Some people know exactly what I'm talking about if they're in this business. Some people, it didn't affect them. It didn't bother them at all. But what I started to see, and I know a lot of other guys in my line of work, we have talked about it numerous times, and that is people who were crewing us for jobs locally. So you'd have like an ad agency or a PR company or a production company from one of the coasts, for example, or from somewhere out of town that were coming to town to produce something, shoot something locally, and they needed to hire some crew locally because it's just cheaper to do that. Mm-hmm. Some of it's through crewing companies, which work as kind of like an agency, and they take a little bit of a percentage of the job, and that's how they get paid and stuff like. And you have to be vetted to be on those lists and so on and so forth. But what a lot of us started to notice, is that people were just price shopping. And it became so. Despite the fact that I maybe had 15 years of experience, and I, quote unquote, knew what I was doing as a director of photography or camera operator, or some of my friends, audio operators, lighting guys, whatever. These people were just price shopping, and I call it the Amazonification of the video production industry, because you'd have these young production line producers who, or even some older folks too, that were just getting pressure from their boss at their production company or their network or whatever. Hey, you've got to hire a crew and you've got to spend as little as possible. Mm-hmm. And some of those jobs early on, I would tell them, be like, all right. I'm like, well, here's my rate and blah, blah, blah. And they'd say, well, that's not what we pay. And I'm like, yeah. And if I had nothing going on, then I'd be like, all right, I'll do it. And that's what they're counting on. They were counting on,
right.
If you're not working, you're not eating, right? So They were counting on desperation for people to accept these jobs. Or those times where I'm like, you know what, I don't need the hassle. I've got some stuff. I've had a really good couple of months. I don't need the, whatever. And then they move on down the list and they find whoever else who will. The younger folks, in a lot of cases, sometimes who don't know what they should be charging, and they don't have the experience to charge the same amount anyway. And it became a price war. And I started seeing this with renting equipment as well. People were like, well, I can find that camera on this website for half the price. And I'm like, yeah, I know what website you're talking about, but it doesn't come with the $4,000 worth of accessories that are on my camera. Oh, and if you did add those, you're going to be the same price as mine.
Right.
So it's change without change. Mine just comes with it. You don't get the option because I shoot with it. So I'm doing you a favor. And a lot of times people who didn't understand that would just go rent it from somewhere else. So we were losing revenue because we weren't willing to, I spent, $50,000 on this camera package. I got it set up ready to go right out of the bag. Right. You're ready to make TV. You don't have to add all these accoutrements that you would at this online rental place that a lot of people forget about. They're like, oh,
Right.
I'm getting it so cheap, and it shows up, and you have half the things that you really need to do it.
Right.
So we started seeing this, and it started becoming a trend. And so people were just shopping on price. They didn't care about experience. They didn't care about quality. They don't care. They don't care. It's all about bottom dollar. And I decided I need to go back to school. I need to learn some new tricks, to have some new tools that I can put in my toolbox that I can offer my clients, or potentially even find new clients in a new way, and learn some stuff. So I decided to go back to graduate school, and I did that in 2018.
Okay.
And through Ball State, and it was an online program. And I really learned some cool stuff. It was a 2-year program, so I graduated in 2020. And so when the pandemic happened, it actually, if you want to say it actually came at a good time, it did, because it helped me get my research project done and my paper. Because then I had time to get my stuff done actually early, so it worked out. But that's what, because of the price war shopping in our industry, that's what forced me to go back to school and take another look through a different lens at what we were doing and how I was doing it.
That's good. That's good. Having that flexibility, having that insight of going, this isn't just something that I'm going to take defeat. I'm going to, just roll over or, bend the way that I'm doing. I'm going to look for new avenues. I love that. So we're talking about a question prior to hit and roll. What's a insignificant moment in your life? One of those side door opportunities that you're just, at the moment you're like, not a big deal. And then years down the road, you're going, that was a monumental moment for me.
Yeah. I think I kind of mentioned one of them. I stopped chasing money. I finally got to a point where I'm like, it's not working out. I mean, I was doing fine. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
I was doing well. God has blessed us, beyond, measure. I was doing fine. But I wasn't where I thought I would be in terms of my age and my experience and career and whatever. So that was the first thing. The second thing was, I started and maybe in conjunction with, I started realizing that there are certain clients that I just didn't want to have as clients anymore, which I know sounds like crazy. Like, why would you turn down money and work?
Right.
Because I got tired of dealing with certain people that were just difficult to deal with, or made my life stressful unnecessarily. And because they're my client, I had to put up with it.
Right.
I just got tired of putting up with it.
Right.
I'm like, life's too freaking short, man. It's too short. And so one of those little moments that you're talking about was, this is, you guys are gonna like, you've got daughters, I know, and Chris, so I know you know this. Jason, do you have
3?
Okay.
He's got them too.
Okay. So in 2016, in June of 2016, my daughter's dance recital was coming up, and I was scheduled to go work a race that particular weekend of her dance recital, so I knew I couldn't make it. But I could go to the dress rehearsal, and I was able to go to the dress rehearsal, and I shot video of her in her outfits, both numbers, on the stage, at the Murat. I shot it in 4K, like a good dad, and got great footage of it. And with my digital cinema camera that cost an arm and a leg back in the day. And so I still got to experience it, but I wasn't there on Saturday for the actual recital. And so I, told my daughter, I'm like, listen, honey, I'm sorry, but, I can't be at the I'll be at the rehearsal, but I can't be at the recital. And so she's so sweet. She's thinking she's letting me down easy, right? She says, Daddy, that's okay. I know that you work all the time on the weekends. So she's letting me down easy. But here's what I heard. That's okay, Dad. I don't expect you to be around. That's what I heard.
Wow.
And it was like a knife in my back, right?
Yeah.
That she, of course, was trying to do the opposite to make me feel like, Dad, it's okay. Don't worry about it. You've been to all of them except this one, whatever.
Right.
And I was like, no, something's got to change. If she doesn't even expect me to be at the recital because I work all the time on the weekends, that's a problem.
That's interesting.
Later that year, actually the very next month, I was at a different race, at a different place, in a different track, in a different state. And it was Saturday afternoon. I won't forget it. It was 4 o'clock in the afternoon, roughly. I was taking a break. I was parked underneath the shade of a huge tree in my golf cart. And I was hot. I was sweaty. I was dirty because, it's a racetrack. There's debris everywhere, whatever.
Right.
And even though it wasn't a dirt track, it's a road course. I was dehydrated. I had a headache. Wasn't drinking enough water. And I'm just sitting there and I'm thinking, I'm running around killing myself on the weekends. My body was starting to pay the price. I was starting to get some back issues, some shoulder issues, from shooting with the camera on my shoulder and all that. And I'm like, I'm running around killing myself for a sport that nobody's watching. So the content that I'm gathering is being watched by literally thousands of people. Not millions, thousands. And I'm like, what am I doing? And I decided right then and there at the end of this season in 2016, I'm done. I'm done. That compounded with all of the other personality issues I had. Like 90% of that company, fantastic. Loved the people, got along great. 3 people made it difficult. And I just, in that moment in July, I'm like, I'm done with this. Done. I need to spend more time at home. I need to keep, and I said goodbye to that money. I was billing them a lot of money.
Right.
And I never replaced it with anything else. But my quality of life went through the roof.
That's awesome.
My stress level went way down, and it was worth it. It was worth firing a client, essentially. We just parted ways. Nobody fired anybody. We just kind of parted ways at the end of the year.
Yep.
And it was fine. And I kind of got into it with the guy that hired me anyway in September of that year. So I knew at that point I'm making the right decision.
Right. All right. So let's get this up now. March 2021. Is that where are we going from? This has all been good learning experience, and hey, let's go jump on a new business opportunity. Catch me up with where we're going down that road.
So I'd hired a business coach in September of 2000, and we spent several months researching business opportunities, specifically franchises. I dated about 5 different franchises. I like to call it dating because, you got to know people. You spent some time with them.
You've got to.
You have to, especially if you're sinking in a ton of money into a new venture.
Right.
You got to know what you're getting into and who you want to do business with. And I decided I needed something pandemic-proof because, at that point, we didn't know. We still kind of don't know when this thing's going to end. And I decided we've got to be in a business that it can't cancel on me. It can't be taken out from underneath me. It's a service where people need it. So I was looking at like appliance repair. I was looking at, water remediation companies. I was looking at a garage door repair and replacement company. I was looking at some internet marketing company, which is, always, needed for small to medium-sized businesses. And I whittled it down, and I ended up choosing ProLift Garage Doors. And so I'm the only franchisee in the state of Indiana. When I signed up and bought the ProLift franchise, there was probably about 30 of us nationwide, and we're already at, I think we're closing in on 60. So it's a brand that's growing a lot rapidly.
That's cool.
Rapidly this year. And so we chose that one because I thought it's a simple business model. Your spring's broken, your door's not opening. The cable comes off. What's wrong with it? I don't know. I was at my friend's house yesterday fixing it because his cable had come off on one side. We put new springs on and got it right. So it's a simple business, replacing a garage door. You don't have to go into the house like you do with some of these other service companies. The water remediation thing, you're basically on call 24/7.
Yes.
And I decided, even though that's a very lucrative business, you got to deal with insurance companies, which can be difficult. And you're on call 365. And I just didn't want that. I thought the garage door business is an industry that there's a lot of competition, but there's a lot of opportunity. And
everybody
and,
and
there's a lot of garage doors. Every new house that's being built, they've got garages with them. Probably since 1960. Every house being built's got a garage. So we decided that would be a good investment for the future. And so we've had a rocky start, having trouble hiring a technician. But once I hired a technician, it didn't work out. He was not great. And it's a good thing that it ended. And so now I'm taking my time, and even though I'm having trouble finding people in general, I'm also not going to make the same mistake I did before, which is hurry up and hire a guy just to get going.
Right.
I'm not going to do that again.
Yep.
I'm going to wait till I hire the right guy so we can have a partnership going forward, and we can take care of the customer, because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's every step, even if it's the wrong step, right, is a learning step.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So,
You know what? This is what happens when you don't trust your gut. When you don't trust your gut and you go like, yeah, it's going to be fine. It's never going to be fine. It sneaks up on you, and you'll pay for it.
Yeah.
it's interesting you bring that up. I've talked to some other people about that, and it's that whole trusting your gut thing in the midst of business is definitely a real thing, but you kind of have to grow it. Like you kind of
Yeah.
the initial starting out is not always like, I got a funny feeling about this. Well, it could be just indigestion, but
Yeah.
there's days where it's like, hey, you probably ought to not do this.
Yeah.
You know.
And, I think you have to make those mistakes in order for you to grow and for you to learn. So you don't make them a second time.
Right.
I mean, experience is
huge.
experience,
Yes.
and you can't get it any other way.
It's hard to substitute that, isn't it?
Right. And
Yep.
sometimes things work out great, and you're like, awesome.
Right.
And sometimes they don't work out great, and you're like, well, crud, that was a tough pill to swallow.
Right.
So if you went back a few years, what would you tell the 20-something you about getting to today? What advice would you give?
Well, first of all, my 21-year-old self or 20-year-old self would be too stupid to listen. Because he was arrogant and confident and was bad at taking advice. But if he would listen, if my 20-year-old self would actually listen to middle-aged me, I would tell him, your dad's right about pretty much everything.
Yeah.
So shut up and just listen to him, and don't be an idiot.
Right. If there's any 21-year-old budding entrepreneurs listening right now, call your dad.
Call your dad.
Call your dad right now.
And listen to him.
That's right.
I just remember, my freshman year at Ball State, I was 19, and I was at school for like 2 or 3 months, first semester, and I called my parents one evening, and my dad answered the phone. I go, hey. He's like, hey, what's going on? I'm like, oh, not much. I said, hey, listen, I just wanted to call you and tell you that I'm sorry. And he goes, for what? I go, just, everything, being a teenager. And like, I learned this like 3 months into school.
Right.
And he goes, all right, I'll get your mother.
Nice.
And as I could hear him walking across the kitchen or whatever, he goes, honestly, I thought this call would come in a couple of years, so this is pretty early.
Right. That's awesome.
So
You're ahead of schedule.
So I kind of knew that my parents weren't as dumb as I thought they were.
Right.
But I still didn't quite figure it out for a couple more years. But
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
Dad's right. Math is everywhere. Pay attention. Don't be
is
a dummy. Just those things.
I love that. I love the contrast between the 21-year-old, I wouldn't listen to advice, but then yet through this entire interview, you've talked about advice you got from your dad. You've talked about the mentoring you got from one of your previous bosses.
Yeah.
You talked about hiring a business coach. Man, that just the value of learning from others and trusting others and leaning on that collective wisdom around us is huge. And I love seeing that in your life.
Thank
That's
you.
really cool.
You're never
Really
too
cool.
old to learn.
Right.
The day that you think you don't have anything to learn is a day you've either given up or you're just stubborn.
I think it's the day you start getting old.
Or
Is when you don't have anything to learn.
Maybe it is. But, I guess I've been lucky in the sense that I've always been able to, I don't get offended easily, which a lot of people, you can't say that. A lot of people they're thin-skinned, whether they want to admit it or not.
right, especially now.
But, like if there's a joke that's at my expense, I want to hear it because if it's funny, I want to laugh at it. Like
Good joke, Jason.
But the point is that there's always something you can learn from every day. There's something you can learn from somebody, and I think you owe it to yourself to know when to heed that. Mm-hmm. And as I get older, man, I just look for those nuggets every day. When you're younger, you're not looking for them, and sometimes they stick to you unintentionally, and it's a good thing.
Right.
And but as you get older, man, you've got to be looking for those moments, those teachable moments, those learnable lessons that you can apply either to your life or maybe to your kid's life or a friend's life. And that's what it's all about, man. It's about constantly learning, having a thirst for knowledge, and humbling yourself to where you know that there's always something that you can learn.
That's awesome.
Yeah. All right, I got one last question. It's for all the dads out there. What advice do you give to the dad who's trying to capture the moments of his kiddos who do not have 4K cinematic cameras? Hey, iPhones are pretty cool.
Yeah.
Galaxy's got some great, Samsung's got some great cameras, man, on some of the, listen, you don't have to have a tripod and a 3-chip camera or a CMOS censored camera, I would say you can never take enough photos of your kids, man. I don't care how old they are. As you guys know as dads, and I'm sure there's other folks that are listening that are also parents, man, it goes by so fast.
It does.
That, anytime, and, like our kids are at the age where like, stop taking pictures of me, whatever. And we're like, listen, someday you're going to thank us when we can go back and show you that picture of when you were 12 at the, getting that academic award at school or getting your varsity letter, for volleyball at school finally. And, stop being difficult. Just let us take the photo. So just take the photo, man. Just whip out the phone and just get a few minutes of video if you have to. Embarrass your kids if you gotta.
Right.
I mean, that's more of the joy of it. That's today's joy. That's separate from capturing the moment. Right. Looking back on the moment's the joy for tomorrow. Yeah. But the embarrassment's the joy for today. Is that the quote? A good one. That's a good one. Yeah. Oh man, thank you so much.
Thanks, Kyle, for showing up and blessing us with your time.
Thank you guys for having me.
That's awesome. Appreciate it so much. Wow, Jason, I knew that it was going to be a great conversation, but the information that he brought to the table with everything that he's done was just a great. Yeah, thanks for connecting Kyle to us. It's my first chance getting to meet him, and I kind of enjoyed the creative side because that's kind of the world that I've been in for a long time. I've never shot for the Colts or the Pacers or Indy or California. It's on the to-do list, but that was cool. So a world that I understand a little better. So that was kind of fun. So what stuck out? What stuck out to you? I love the fact that he was talking about the execution and just having a plan and coming up with things and trying to execute them, and so that he didn't fail. But we talk about failure sometimes, and then it's in the positive light, and sometimes it's in the negative light. A lot of times it's in the negative light. But he's a man with a plan, and he's driven. I'm super excited for him. Yeah, and I liked how there's a fear of failure, but I think he was referencing more that big catastrophic failure. Yes, because he talked about a lot of small failures along the way, things that stretched him, grew him, taught him life lessons, that redirected his thoughts about life. I mean, he embraces those types of failures, right? If you want to call it that. And so that's, I thought that was really cool. I liked the aspect about, here we are. This is our, 4th episode, our 4th interview, and yet another person going, I just stopped chasing the dollar. The dollar. Oh. That was not the thing that was driving. It was driving my life. It's the wrong thing. And I loved that. That's good. I love that again. Just going, I want to be there for my daughter on Saturday. Right. I want to be available. I want to not shoot the dress rehearsal. I want to shoot the real thing. Right. And I want to future-proof my family when it comes to education and retirement. That's important, but
have different values that I want to drive me, and that I thought that was cool.
Yes, that is cool. And it did, and the whole comment about him, everybody. Well, I don't know about everybody, but as a dad, you kind of hope you have that moment with your dad, or as a dad, that
Absolutely.
is critical for their life to stay on some sort of track of being successful, or staying true to the values as we grow up and become who we are. So between those two, I don't know, it was just, there's a lot of good nuggets in there.
It was good stuff.
And he was talking about nuggets each day. We got a couple of them today.
Right.
So I really appreciate that. And
Yeah.
thank Kyle again.
Yeah, and I, being on the creative side of things in life for myself, I love hearing a creative who is willing to take those hard steps, because a lot of times it's easy just to sit in idea land and just dream and vision and never actually execute. And here's a guy who's been walking that for years, and I loved hearing that. I'm not satisfied with the dream. I want to see it happen. So that's cool. A lot of bravery in life to live the way we live.
Man,
I mean, goodness.
I tell you what, this is going to be a lot of hard work. I hope that all our guests are this strong. We've had a lot of great guests here, and
I know.
We're gonna have to keep
no pressure on future days, is there?
Right? I was like, oh my goodness. So,
yeah. Well, hey guys, thanks for tuning in to the Leading and Serving podcast again. If you would do us a favor, you can reach out to us. Information's in the show notes if you'd like to send us a question, send us a comment. If there's something you want to learn about in industry, we'll try and find a guest for that, right?
Do us another favor. Make sure you're, if you wouldn't mind, share it with your friends. Share the podcast with your friends, because I've been sharing it with my friends, and I hope that they're sharing it with theirs as well. So.
Yeah, like it, subscribe to it, share it, all that good stuff. We love it. So appreciate you guys for tuning in. See you next week.
Thanks.